Before we get to our headlining speaker this evening, I'd like to share that we did have to change at the last minute. So Marshall Morris was originally planned to be our speaker this evening, and yesterday he had an unexpected procedure, and so that's keeping him from here tonight. So we hope to have him in future months, because I would love to share his story here at Sparks After Hours with everyone. We have Jamie Hopper, who is going to be our headlining speaker this evening. And before we get to his presentation, there's a couple of people I want to make sure to recognize. Sitting at our AV table here, we have Ray Mills with RM Media and Pavithri Kilgore with KPSK Consulting. Give them a hand. So let me ask everyone in this room a question. Do you think it sounds better this month? Yeah? So give them another big hand, because they came to the office on Monday night. We put all of this together, and we tested it, and we played with it, and we had some pizza and some laughs, and we got it right. So now we're not, we're giving you a much better quality show as far as something pleasant to hear. Also, our leaders at each table: Cindy Garlock, Deanna Morey, Jay Ballounis, let's see, and we have Ray and Pavithri, who are other table leaders. We have Nikki Fisher, so all of them, give them a big hand. They helped facilitate our conference, and I'm very sorry, Barb, at the recommendation of Deanna, so let's give her a hand all on her own, because I forgot. So, Barb, you did a great job this evening. I'm sorry I didn't mention you right away. If you would like to continue to be a leader, please join us next month. I want to share with you, our next after-hours event is February 14th, Valentine's Day. So I'd like to encourage each of you, at the suggestion of John Cannon here, since you can't be alone on Valentine's Day and you can't leave the person that you care about alone on Valentine's Day, bring your spouse, bring your significant other, bring that person who's special to you in your life here next month. We have 3 incredible speakers that are going to be there. Our theme for February is love. And Marty Moran there, right next to Barb, is going to be our 3-minute speaker. I don't want to spill the beans too much on what his presentation is, but anyone who can be married for 50 years is a hell of an accomplishment. So we're going to consider that an incredible accomplishment and prerequisite to being able to talk about the topic of love. Also, let's give a big hand to the Northside Events and Social Club here for providing our venue space. And finally, as we go to introduce Jamie now, let's give a big hand. I met Jamie in 2018, I believe now. 2019, so just before COVID. And so Jamie and I have gotten to know each other quite a bit over the years, and I know that he is a man of faith. He puts a lot of who he is into the faith he has. He has a wonderful wife and 2 children, correct? Resident of Fishers, Indiana. And Jamie comes from a background in the world of restaurants before pivoting into the financial services world, which on the surface might not make a lot of sense until you've worked in food service and you realize the immense customer service skills that are required to keep hungry people happy. So I know Jamie brings that mentality of serving the people that he works with to the table, and I know he is going to do a fantastic job tonight. So give a big hand to Jamie Hopper.
Thank you, man. Awesome. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you to Ryan for calling me. I was supposed to be on this stage in December, and about 2 days before the event, I got COVID and wasn't able to be here. And then a few days after, actually the day before the event, I had a major Crohn's flare-up. Those of you that know me know that I'm a huge advocate of the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. I had a huge flare-up that put me in the hospital for a week, and to be honest, I'm still recovering from that. So when Ryan asked me to speak today, originally I declined because I said, I'm still recovering. I don't have time to prepare. I want to meet with Deanna to be able to do this right, and I wasn't able to do that. And he agreed. 3:24 today, I get a phone call from Ryan that says that Marshall's not able to be here. Now, I'm friends with Marshall. I texted him this morning and said, hey, I'm looking forward to your talk. I can't wait to see it. And he alluded to the fact that he was having a hard time with the recovery, but he planned to be here. Well, unfortunately, that's not the case. I'm going to tell a little bit of Marshall's story for him, because there's not a better version of time and making use of your time than I can think of with Marshall Morris. Now, I can tell you from my own health experience, that week I spent in the hospital could have been a month. I don't know if any of you have ever spent time in the hospital or not, but you've got the clock on the wall and they write the date on the board, but you forget what day it is. You can't remember if it's day or night. It's dark in there. It's loud. And it's crazy. And I was in a lot of pain and on a lot of medicine, and it was a hard time. And that's kind of a lot of what Marshall's gone through. So I met Marshall in June of 2021. We went to a small group together at our church. We met at our pastor's house. There were about 15 people there, some that I knew, some that I didn't. Never met Marshall before. I looked across the room. There was this Italian-looking guy. He was about 300 pounds of solid muscle. And I was like, man, that guy looks like somebody I need to know. Well, we went around and introduced ourselves. And when it was Marshall's turn, he started telling these stories about how, he wasn't always the person that he wanted to be, the person that he should have been, the father, the husband, all of those things. And he talked about his time in the military. And then he shared these stories, and he said, I was in the military, and one night we were jacking around in a Humvee, and we were playing around, and all of a sudden we came across this cliff, and we didn't realize it was a cliff, and we dropped like 30 feet, and I fell out of the Humvee and landed on the ground, and the Humvee landed on top of me, but it was the sides, and I was underneath it, and I didn't get hurt at all, except for the fall. And then he told a story about how they were in battle, and he was in the Middle East, and he was carrying one of his soldiers out of the battle. The enemy was shooting at him. He could see the lasers coming at him and going around him. He's like, those things don't go around. And then he told a story about how his wife was pregnant, his former wife, and he was on the road traveling, and she had a miscarriage, and his wife blamed him for not being there, and it ruined their relationship. And it put him in a dark hole for years. Now, I'm telling you these stories. He's told these stories publicly, so it's okay for me to say these. But when he finally, something happened one morning, and he came out of the darkness, and he felt a peace that he had never felt before. In that time, he never talked about having a son. He never told anybody that he had a son. He lost his wife. He lost his family. He lost almost everything. That day, a friend of his came to the house, and he started talking about his son. Later that day, he got a phone call from a woman that turned out to be his daughter that he never knew. And it changed his life. He's like, when I had this experience, and now all of a sudden I've got this daughter in my life that I didn't even know I had. And he's gotten to know her and build a relationship with her, and it changed everything for him. And then he told a story about how one day he was driving, he was traveling, he was trying to get back to Fort Wayne, and it was late, it was early in the morning, it was like 6 o'clock. He pulled over off the side of the road. He's like, I didn't know where to go, so I just pulled into this parking lot. I took a nap. I woke up, and the parking lot was full of cars. And he was like, I needed to know what was going on there. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. And he walks inside, and it was a church, and they were doing 21 days of prayer. And he's like, I just had this feeling like this was where I was meant to be. And he's telling us this story, and he says, I know that I've done a lot of things that I regret. I know I do a lot of things that I shouldn't have done. But I know that God forgives me, He loves me, and I know where I'm going. And after I've been through all of these things, I'm not sure what it is yet, but I know that God's got something in store for me, and I can't wait to see what it is. Those things happened in June. I got to know him for a few weeks after that. In July, we're doing a Serve Day project with the church, and he comes over to me, and he pulls me off to the side, and he's like, Jamie, I've been going through some health stuff. And he's like, I don't know what it is. He's like, they're trying to figure it out. A few weeks later, he got diagnosed with terminal cancer. Terminal cancer. He's in his early 50s. So the reason he's not here today is because he's got cholangiocarcinoma. It's bile duct cancer. He's got a big tumor around the portal vein that goes to his liver. Every 8 weeks or so, he has to have stents replaced. Otherwise, he's in a lot of pain. Yesterday, they had to do that on an emergency basis. In the beginning, it was his 29th time. In the beginning, he'd have the surgery in the morning, and he'd be with Chris for steak dinners in the evening. Now, it takes him a couple days to recover. It's a different story. But what I want to tell you is what Marshall has done with his time. 8 days after his surgery, he started Dying Defiantly. He started a charity to help people that had terminal cancer, especially veterans that are going through these things, because he knows that not everybody's got the same relationship with God that he does. But he knows that there are people out there that need counseling, they need support, maybe they need help getting their documents together, maybe getting their final papers done, maybe their family needs support, caregiver support, and that's what Dying Defiantly does. Marshall has spent the last 2.5 years counseling for thousands of hours, talking with people on the phone and listening to them, meeting with them. I met somebody here tonight who introduced him to a friend who has cancer, and he said they met for 3 hours and Marshall talked to him just so they could talk through their situations. And then he set up peer-to-peer counseling for people just like that are going through the same thing so they could talk. And he started a transition program for veterans. It's like 4,000 veterans a year have to leave the military because they have a terminal diagnosis. Once you leave the military, you don't have many benefits anymore. And Marshall's charity, Dying Defiantly, makes sure that they get those benefits. And it's been amazing. The other things he's done in the years since he's had cancer, what I didn't mention was that when the doctor gave him his diagnosis, he gave him a range of time that he was supposed to live. His expiration date, as he liked to call it, was July 8th, 2022. So every day that he's lived past that's been a bonus. Now, he's laughed because he knows that God's the only one that knows when his final date will be. But what he's done in that time is amazing. He started Dying Defiantly. He's traveled the world. He got engaged. His daughter has given him 2 grandchildren that he didn't have before. He went to a high school reunion and saw all of his friends from back home that he wasn't able to see. And he has lived tremendously. And that's what I want for us, is to be able to live tremendously. So I want to just share quickly, I know my time's running, but I've experienced some loss in my life, and I know soon we're going to lose Marshall. I lost my mom in 2004, and I was not in a good place then. And when Mom passed, I didn't have a good relationship with God. I was newly married. We didn't have kids yet. And when she passed, time stopped for me. It was like the world didn't exist. I didn't want to go to work. I didn't have feelings. I was numb, and it just wasn't good. 2 years ago, when my father passed away, I have 2 kids, 2 wonderful kids. Leslie and I have been married 22 years. We started a new church in 2015. We have a different relationship, a different life. I was able to experience the good and the bad and experience that. Before I was numb, and now I'm not numb anymore. So what I want to share with you is the week when my dad passed, we had friends that had babies. We had friends that got married. Leslie and I had our anniversary. A lot of good things happened. So make sure that you spend your time doing things that matter to you, that are important to you, and do things to the best that you can. Thank you all very much.